The loudest thought in your head is usually the wrong one. And that's why smart people stay stuck and why clarity feels so hard to reach. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to tell the difference so that decisions stop feeling heavy. Specifically, we're going to look at three things: why urgent thoughts feel important even when they're misleading, how to recognize mental noise versus a clear signal in real time, and a simple way to stop looping so decisions feel lighter again. Now, if you keep on going back and forth on the same decision, it's not overthinking. The problem is that everything inside you is talking at the same volume. Now, if that sounds familiar, stay with me. Because once you see this pattern, it becomes very practical very fast. Now, most people think clarity means having fewer thoughts, and that's not true. Clarity means knowing which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones don't. And if no one ever taught you how to do that, your mind just ends up running the show instead of supporting you. Now, this isn't about calming your mind or fixing your thinking. It's about learning how to work with it. It's about understanding what's actually happening inside you when decisions feel heavy, confusing, or maybe endless. So here's the first thing to understand. Not everything that happens inside you is the same thing. See, thoughts and emotions and stress reactions, maybe fear responses and clear internal signals, they're just different experiences. They serve different purposes. But most of us were never taught to separate them, especially when we're under pressure or maybe facing real consequences. Instead, we just treat them all like they're coming from one source. So if something feels wrong, we assume it's meaningful. If it repeats, we assume it's got to be important. If it feels urgent, we assume, oh, we've got to act right now. That assumption causes more confusion than almost anything else, especially in high-stakes decisions. A thought is just a thought. It's a mental event. It may be useful or it may be noise. An emotion is a body signal. It tells you how something feels, not what to do. Stress is a physiological reaction. Fear is a protective response. None of those things automatically point to the right decision. But when you don't know the difference, your mind starts stacking them up together. A thought triggers an emotion. The emotion creates stress, and the stress creates urgency. And suddenly, boom, the whole experience feels meaningful, even if nothing new is actually being said. And this is where a lot of intelligent, self-aware people just get trapped. So if you're reflective, analytical, or conscientious, you probably trust your mind. You assume that if something keeps coming up, it's got to matter. You assume that thinking something through means that you're being responsible. And sometimes that's true. But there's a line where reflection just turns into looping. And looping is, when your thoughts just stop moving forward. They don't lead to any insight. They don't create options for you. They don't reduce all the uncertainty. They just keep repeating and repeating. And that repetition can feel convincing, even when it's not helpful. I once worked with a man who said, I just keep on thinking about this decision all day long, so it's got to mean something, right? Well, when we looked closely, nothing was changing in his thinking. The same worries, same risks, same imagined outcomes, no new information, no movement, just pressure to get it right. But the shift came when he stopped treating repetition as a signal. He stopped asking, well, why can't I stop thinking about this? And he started asking, is this thought actually helping me? And the moment he asked that, the intensity dropped. And when the intensity dropped, the decision stopped feeling impossible to make. So here's a key idea to hold on to. Intensity is not the same as importance. Loud does not mean true. Repetitive does not mean right. So to understand why this happens, you got to understand what your mind is designed to do. See, your mind's main job is not to help you live your best life. Its main job is to keep you safe. It watches for danger. It looks for uncertainty. It tries to prevent loss. That's not a flaw. That's just biology. See, from an evolutionary point of view, missing a threat was more dangerous than overreacting to one. So your mind has never learned to sound the alarm. It just sounded early. And that's why it jumps to worst case scenarios. That's why it repeats concerns. That's why it creates urgency, even when nothing is actually urgent. Think back to prehistory. Maybe you were a Cro Magnon man or woman. Let's say that you were outside, and then suddenly you detect a rustle in the bushes. Is that just the wind, or is it a saber-toothed tiger waiting to pounce on you and devour you? Your internal alert system instantly fires into overdrive, sounds a loud alarm in your head, and your fight or flight system kicks in. And if you were lucky enough to pay attention to that loud internal warning, well, you stayed alive. And if all you did was admire the bushes and ignore that loud internal noise, well, you became dinner. This protective system, often called the ego mind in psychology, doesn't care if a choice is aligned, meaningful, or even satisfying. It just cares if the choice feels safe. And safety usually means known and familiar, which doesn't necessarily mean good, does it? Your ego mind formed when you were very young, usually before the age of 4 or 5, and it formed to protect you from perceived threats and overwhelm and unpredictability. And since the ego is focused on safety, not accuracy, it asks, well, what keeps me accepted? What keeps me out of trouble? What keeps me from feeling shame, fear, or abandonment? But as an adult, the ego still runs its original protection code with hypervigilance, people pleasing, overthinking, control, avoidance, and self criticism. It's not malicious, it's just outdated. Think of your ego as a loyal but overworked bodyguard who never got the memo that the danger has passed. And you see, that's why your mind often pushes you to stay where you are, even when, what you're doing is not working. Perhaps you're at a job you don't like, but you also internally understand that having that job feels much safer than trying to find a new one that you haven't mastered yet. Another example is a pattern that you're unhappy continuing in. It just feels safer than trying to change. The mind chooses predictability over possibility, known over unknown. So, how do you tell the difference between the noise and the signal? Mental noise is how just that protection system we spoke about gets your attention. Noise feels urgent. It tells you that you need to decide now. It feels loud and demanding. It repeats itself because it's monitoring risk. It focuses on what could go wrong, not what could work. It pressures you to stay within your comfort zone, even if that comfort zone is uncomfortable. Here's something important. Noise is not trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you. But protection and clarity are not the same thing. Because this protective system is so loud, it often drowns out quieter internal signals that might actually be more useful for you. Those quieter signals don't shout, they don't rush you, they don't argue, they don't need to convince you, they just appear. And then they wait. They're always there, but they're getting drowned out by the alarm bells coming from your ego mind. This is where people get confused. They're listening for volume. They think that clarity will feel intense or emotional or obvious. So when a clear signal shows up calmly, it just gets dismissed. The mind says, oh, that can't be it. It didn't feel strong enough. And then the noise comes back even louder, trying to fill that silence. Think of your own experience. Have you ever sat across from somebody when you're having a conversation and felt comfortable not filling in the silence? It can feel agonizing sometimes, can't it? I know I struggle with that all the time, trying to be quiet. Now, clear internal signals have a very different feel than a loud ego mind. They're calm, they're steady, they don't demand immediate action, they don't spiral into explanations, they don't repeat endlessly. And one way to tell the difference is to notice whether something argues with you. Noise negotiates, noise debates, noise explains itself over and over again. But clear signals, they don't. They don't need to. Clarity doesn't chase you, doesn't rush you, doesn't panic. And another way to tell is to just watch what happens over time. Noise tends to spike and crash. It feels intense, then exhausting. But clear signals remain stable. They don't grow louder with pressure. They don't disappear when you stop thinking about them. They just stay. And most people miss this because they expect clarity to feel exciting. They expect a surge of confidence or maybe certainty. But real clarity often feels quiet and simple. Sometimes it even feels anticlimactic. Think about a time when you made a decision that actually worked. Not one you forced, not one you talked yourself into, one that just stuck. If you look back honestly, it's probably coming with not with a lot of drama. It came with a feeling that this makes sense rather than, wow, this feels amazing. That's an important difference. And another reason people struggle is because they're trying to feel safe before they move. But that clarity doesn't always bring comfort. Sometimes it brings direction first, but the comfort comes later. So here's a practical shift that you can make starting now. When something feels loud inside of you, don't ask, is this true? Ask, what is this trying to do for me? Is it trying to help you move forward or is it trying to keep you safe? That question changes the conversation inside your head. It turns noise into information rather than authority. So you don't need to get rid of your protective mind. You just need to stop letting it make decisions for you. Its job is just to alert you to risk, not to choose your path. This is where discernment comes in. Discernment means that you can hear everything inside you without obeying everything inside you. It means you can notice fear without letting fear drive. It means you can acknowledge stress without mistaking it for direction. Discernment is not about being calm all the time. It's about being clear, even when things just feel uncomfortable. Well, here's something else to notice. Clear signals don't come with pressure to explain yourself to others, but noise often does. Noise rehearses conversations. It imagines criticism. It prepares defenses. Clear signals don't need approval, and that's another clue. I can remember a time in my own practice when this happened. I just wanted to offer information that just sounded completely way out there, way out in left field. My rational mind was screaming, warning, don't say it. You'll be ridiculed, labeled a failure. You know, total ego mind kind of stuff, right? And I'm sure you've had that feeling, haven't you? Now, believe me, that loud noise in my head was really obnoxious and really convincing. I was about to give in to it when I decided to discern what was just noise and what might be the hidden signal underneath. So I did my best to let that internal fear pass, because it always does, and search for the really quiet signal underneath. It was kind of like searching for one of those little rescue beacons lying at the bottom of the ocean. You had to be really quiet to hear its signal. Eventually, I heard it quietly pinging away in the back of my head. Ping, ping. And that's when I knew I found my answer. I went on to give the information, and it turned out to be 100% accurate. Who would have thought? So, if you find yourself mentally justifying a decision before you've eventually made it, that's usually noise. If something feels right but doesn't need a speech, you're closer to clarity. You may also notice that clear signals just don't multiply. As noise creates 10 options, 10 fears, 10 paths, but clear signals tend to point in one direction at a time. That doesn't mean the path's going to be easy. It just means it's going to be clean. And clean does not mean comfortable. It means uncluttered. Now, the reason that matters is because most exhaustion around decision making does not come from making decisions. It actually comes from fighting yourself. It comes from treating every internal experience like it deserves equal airtime. When you stop doing that, your energy returns. You're not indecisive because you're incapable. You're indecisive because you've been listening to everything instead of discerning. And that's not a character flaw. It's just a skill gap. And the good news is that skills can be learned. So this week, try this. When you feel stuck, don't push for an answer. Instead, listen for the tone of what's happening inside you. Is it loud or is it steady? Urgent or calm? Repetitive or complete? Is it trying to keep you safe or help you move forward? You don't have to decide right away. You just have to start to notice. Clarity grows when pressure drops, not because you stop caring, but because you stop forcing. So here's the quiet takeaway from all of this. When things feel loud inside, it's rarely because you're missing information. It's usually because different internal processes are competing, and no one ever showed you how to tell them apart. But once you learn that skill, decisions stop feeling so heavy. You don't need to force clarity. You don't need to overpower your thinking. You just need to know what you're actually listening to. And this leads directly to something a lot of people find confusing. Sometimes, even after the noise quiets down, even when you feel calm, grounded, and maybe ready, the decision just still doesn't land. That moment trips people up. They assume something's got to be wrong. They think, well, if I feel ready, why can't I decide? And if you've ever felt that way, the next conversation is going to matter to you. In the episode called The Real Reason You Can't Decide, I break down why feeling calm doesn't automatically create clarity, why trying to force a decision often makes the loop worse, actually, and what actually allows a decision to form without pressure. And it picks up exactly where this leaves off. And it explains what's happening when the answer should feel obvious, but it don't. So go on to that episode next. That's the distinction. I'm Chris. Bye for now.